Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Meet Touchstone Essentials Live. I'm Craig Daly, the Vice President of Global Sales for Touchstone Essentials, and I'm here with Cindy Klement. Cindy, hi, how are you?
Hey, great, Craig. Nice to be here.
Good. Well, we're glad to have you here. Cindy, let's go to the next slide. I want to brag about you for a little bit. This is Cindy Klement, as we talked about. Many of you have met her before. She has spoken with us a couple times now, and we're excited. She's going to be speaking for us a couple of times a month doing these training programs. Cindy is an acclaimed speaker and nutritionalist, published author. In fact, this book that you're looking at on the right, Your Body's Environmental Chemical Burden, is an Amazon #1 bestseller. And as I mentioned last time, looking over your website, just looking at all of the different the different what do you call them? Certifications, not certifications. Awards, that's the word I'm looking for. The awards that you have received for this book is absolutely amazing. There's so many of them. You just see badge after badge after badge. Congratulations on a wonderful book.
Thank you.
Well, Cindy's been in the nutritional and herbal field for over 40 years. She's an adjunct professor, and she is a nutritionist and certified nutritionist at that. She's the kind of person that doctors go to learn about nutrition. And that's the thing that we're excited about. We love to have her here with us. She's a dear friend of mine. I've known her for decades now. And again, welcome, Cindy. And we'll turn the time over to you to tell us all about cleansing at the cellular level.
I am so excited about this. Thank you, Craig.
We are too.
Yeah, it's a great topic. Hello, everybody in the Touchstone Essentials family. Last time we got together, I was talking to you about how the field of environmental medicine is in its infancy, and that you would walk away from that webinar probably knowing more than your personal physician would. But I want to tell you why that is. Science takes a while to really catch up, and there are a lot of complications in toxicant research. In other words, why would one person react to a specific contaminant and another wouldn't? It has a great deal to do with multiple factors. So for instance, how is the health or the functioning of that individual's detoxification organs? Or what is the chemical's target organ? Because there are some chemicals in our body that love the brain, that love the liver. So that can be a complication. The person's age, their overall health can be a factor in that. Their nutritional status, are they eating junk food all day long, or are they eating really well? So in other words, their dietary habits or their exercise habits. Also, their genetic makeup. Is their body able to detoxify? Are those organs strong? And then there's something called the level of exposure, the frequency of exposure, and the duration of the exposure. And to me, most importantly, is the developmental stage at the time of exposure. Because folks, different chemicals have different health effects on the body. And when we have this continued exposure to a multitude of chemicals on a daily basis, it results in a type of chemical slurry in our bodies. And those chemical slurries have these additive and synergistic effects with the other chemicals. And then the other complications to that research are that, again, that timing. When was the person exposed? Were they exposed in the womb? Were they exposed when they were 90? So that is really why the research takes so long to come forth with all of this, because if they've got 400 participants in a study, they're only looking at one chemical in that study, by the way, one chemical out of 80,000. So it's really hard to pull that research together. But I'm going to share with you what I do know after reading 1,500 clinical research papers. And what I will tell you is detoxification is a must in our modern world. Now, toxins are going to interfere with all body organs, but let's talk about how they interfere with immune health. Folks, I don't know if you're aware of this, but prostate and testicular cancer have been rapidly increasing over the past 50 years. Type 2 diabetes as well has increased from about 153 million individuals to now over double that at 347 million in just 28 years. So that number has doubled. We find that women are experiencing more diseases that involve their breasts, their ovaries, their thyroid glands, the endometrial lining of the uterus. And the World Health Organization has this amazing document, and every 10 years they update it. It's called the International Program of Chemical Safety. And they last updated it in, let's see, 2011. So, no, I'm sorry, 2012. So it'll be next year where they update that. Now, almost 10 years ago, they listed 800 chemicals that are capable of interfering with our hormone receptors in our bodies. And of course, they acknowledge that the vast majority of these chemicals have really never been studied, never been tested. Now, when we talk about chemicals that interfere with our hormone receptor sites, they're called endocrine disrupting compounds. We call those EDCs, endocrine disrupting compounds. And what those are is that they're very small molecules that mimic natural hormones in the body, but they're chemicals. And so these, we'll call them EDs, they can alter our normal hormonal balances in both males and in females, and can lead to infertility, early adolescence in our young girls, and interestingly, a delayed development in our adolescent boys, because most of these chemicals have an estrogen base to them. So when a young developing male is completely exposed to toxicant after toxicant, it delays his male hormones. And so he has this delayed response. Now, these EDs or endocrine disruptors can also affect our thyroid, our glucose and insulin, which is why that type 2 diabetes keeps going up. They can also increase our risk of cardiovascular disease. And when it comes to our thyroid, there are a whole list of these chemicals that affect our thyroid health. We've got the volatile organic compounds, which are the things that you smell, the exhaust or a glue, or something, a paint, something like that. Those are the VOCs. We also have two types of pesticides, which are chlorinated and organophosphate pesticides. We've got PCBs or phthalates, BPA, triclosan, just all kinds of things. And again, on a daily basis, the slurry in our bodies, and they have these endocrine disrupting properties, can certainly affect our thyroid gland. Now, when it comes to fertility, again, in 2012, this World Health Organization and the United Nations have this program where they listed those 800 chemicals. But in this document in 2012, they listed concerns regarding the health of humans and wildlife. And in this document, they show with scientific evidence to back it up that 40% of men in certain countries have low semen quality, and that penile malformations have increased over time in baby boys, as have non-descending testicles. So we are talking big problems here with endocrine disrupting compounds. Also, these endocrine disrupting compounds create obesity. They're called obesogens. And how they do that is they disrupt the normal metabolic processes that develop early on in our life. And what that does is it increases one's susceptibility to weight gain throughout the lifetime. So this is making it very difficult for people to maintain a healthy weight. And then again, it increases that metabolic syndrome, which isn't a disease, it's a syndrome. It's It's high blood pressure, it's high cholesterol, obesity, and then glucose insulin problems is what metabolic syndrome is. So we've got, we can't lose weight, and this increase in weight increases our predisposition toward type 2 diabetes. So these endocrine disrupting compounds are really problematic. Now, these toxicants, they can affect our energy levels. They can inhibit our memory and our focus. They interfere with our sleep quality. They can cause changes in our liver functioning. They can increase seizures in human beings. And again, most sadly, because I always go back to those developing infants in the womb and nursing, because wow, they're coming into their brand new life here on earth with all these toxicants in their body. So these endocrine disrupting compounds are also responsible for some of the birth defects, alterations in brain functioning and learning in our young children, learning disabilities, as well as aberrant behavior, abnormal behavior. I think we see a lot of that in the world today, don't we? All right, so let's talk about how we can fix all that. And that would be with the clinoptilolite, zeolite. Where does it come from? What does it do? Well, zeolite is a mineral compound that's actually created when lava hits seawater. And the process can take thousands or even millions of years. In fact, scientists estimate that the first zeolite minerals were formed over 300 million years ago. And the name zeolite itself originates from two Greek words. The first word is zeo, meaning to boil, and litos, which is a stone. So this is where this came from. So in this clash of scalding lava and this cold seawater, the zeolite forms these really unique little cage-like structures. And in this tiny little cage, it traps heavy metals, fungal toxins, radioactive elements, microbes, nitrates, pesticides, and probably a whole lot more that we're not even familiar with. So these tiny cages enable the zeolite to act as, think of it as like a molecular sieve. And what it does is it filters these molecules based on their particle size. And they have a negative surface charge that has kind of potassium and sodium and calcium. So when it comes into in contact with these heavy metals, it replaces those minerals with those heavy metals and other toxicants. So in other words, the zeolite can pick up plenty of the bad stuff and replace it with the good stuff. So that's all great news, isn't it? Here's a small clinical trial. There were only 33 volunteers in this, but zeolite showed to enhance the elimination of aluminum, arsenic, lead, and mercury and other heavy metals like cadmium. So people who took a liquid zeolite product had significantly higher levels in their urine samples of these contaminants. So the lab analysis did confirm that the zeolite was clean. So we didn't want to have, a contaminated zeolite in the body showing this stuff in the urine. But what they found is that the zeolite was clean, and these contaminants coming through the urine was not from zeolite, contaminated zeolite. It was from what it was pulling from the body. They do a lot of studies on animals, of course. And in one study on mice, a large study, the zeolite enabled lead elimination and from the body and protected the brain from damage from lead. In fact, it reduced the levels of lead in mice in all of the organs by about 91%. And in rats, again, I hate to talk about the animal studies, but this is what they do in science. In rats, the clinoptilolite stimulated aluminum detoxification, stopped the aluminum from actually reaching the blood. So I want to clarify something that I talked about in a previous seminar or webinar when I told you that pregnant and nursing women should not detoxify. What I meant by that is there are oftentimes people that are taking, let's say, a bunch of milk thistle because they want to detoxify their liver. Well, folks, the problem is when you mobilize a toxicant, it gets into the bloodstream, and then it is fed into through the umbilical cord into that infant. With zeolites, remember those tiny cages capture these toxicants, and they won't be passed on through breast milk or through the umbilical cord blood. And how we know that is because they did many studies on cows and pigs, believe it or not, to find that out. So it's perfectly safe to take during pregnancy. It's just that when people decide to detoxify and don't have something to capture that mobilization, so you've gotten you've gotten lead out of your brain, with more calcium, but you've had nothing to absorb it to keep it from getting back into the body again. So that's what I'm talking about. I wanted to clarify that. So for those of you who are using that in pregnancy or nursing, keep doing it, because we got to protect those babies. Now, according to a review of studies, again, on animals, they found, now again, this is animal studies, they found that zeolite can shrink tumors. It can improve the overall health and prolong the lifespan of these animals. It can boost the effects of chemotherapy in animals. It prevented pigs who were cadmium poisoned. It helped to prevent anemia in those pigs, and it helped to protect their liver. And also brain cells are very particularly sensitive to heavy metal poisoning. And these heavy metals then can damage our neurons, which are nerve cells, trigger anxiety, depression, anger, and create attention problems. So we want to make sure that we are using, in fact, I think about this product so often now that I've been introduced to it and done so much research on it. Folks, you guys are out there saving the world. You're saving the next generation. And I'm so excited about that, because I'm really pro get these people detoxified and get these babies detoxified. Another one that I want to share with you is in a peer-reviewed journal in 2018. The journal is called Frontiers in Pharmacology. And this is a peer-reviewed journal, which means that only really scientifically based papers can be published there. And what they showed in 2018, and this was with humans, that zeolites have a positive effect on the brain. They are great at activating the immune system. They can actually create bone regeneration in the body, and that a lot of its properties, of course, include detoxification, but its high antioxidant effect and its overall support of the gut microbiota. Now, I get so excited because there are so many topics here that we're going to address in future webinars. And we're going to be talking about how antioxidants work and how the gut works, and what is the connection between the gut and the nervous system, and the gut and the immune system. So stay tuned, because we've got a lot of good stuff coming. Now, lastly, the other potential benefits that were shown in these research studies with zeolites are that it can help with digestive orders. It can normalize cholesterol and triglyceride levels in the body, can fight dental plaque, which I thought was fascinating, help with bad breath, protect the liver, of course, aid in the health of the skin, reduce inflammation in the body, and help with allergies. So this is a great time in Michigan for people to be using this, as I think about it, because when you look on the weather app every day, you can see where the pollen is. And right now the trees are very high in pollen blowing around in Michigan. So again, allergies, I mean, who knew? Now, there's one thing I do want to tell you about taking zeolites, and this is that you don't want to take it at the same time that you take your supplements and your prescription medication, because that little cage is just ready to kind of grab onto some of this stuff. So what the research shows is that For instance, if you're taking an antibiotic, two types of antibiotics were studied, a tetracycline and something called a quinolone. And a quinolone is what they give you for an upper or lower respiratory tract infection, pneumonia, a urinary tract infection. What it does is it can bind to that so you don't get the full effect of that medication. And likewise with your supplements. So take it maybe an hour after or an hour before you take your supplements, just to make sure that none of that caging is occurring with the nutrients and potentially some of the medications that you should probably be taking. They do have an antioxidant effect. So, of course, that's a good thing to keep us from oxidative stress. But I always use a great deal of an abundance, I would say, of caution whenever there are medications and supplements involved. I really like to separate them by about an hour. So, that's just my recommendation, but I just thought I would share that with you. Now, size does matter, as you know. We look at the pure body, and that is the one that has the zeolite particles that are sized to detox both the gut and the body. And then the pure body extra, which is nano-sized, very tiny to reach us on a cellular level. To me, it's very important, in fact, a no-brainer that we do need both of them. Now, if we want to boost our detoxification abilities and support the organs of detoxification by adding in the super green juice, you can even make your detoxification more effective. Now, the slide says that it's alkalizing and energizing and helps with our immune health. I cannot wait to share this information with you in these future webinars about going into detail about the mushrooms and how they work and their historical background. In fact, in August, we've got a webinar coming up where I'm going to show you all of the plants, the herbs or plant medicine, I call it, in your products, why they're in there. Why exactly is that in there and how does that product work? So for instance, when we talk about detoxification, some of the beautiful plants that are in the super green juice are chlorella and spirulina and chlorophyll, I'm sorry. And those really help with that detoxification ability. For liver support, we've got cilantro and parsley and dandelion, milk thistle, turmeric. So we've got all of this for the adaptogens. And an adaptogen is something that it's a substance, or we'll call it a plant in this case, that helps the body react to stress in a more neutral way. So in other words, it helps to just kind of calm the body down, adapt to stress. So although it doesn't change what's coming at you, the stress isn't going to go away. Your reaction to the stress is not the same. You can pretty much look at it if you've got enough adaptogens and go, okay, got it. This is stress. This too shall pass. I'll be okay, instead of freaking out. So adaptogens are wonderful. And we'll talk more about those as we go on. Now, pH balancing is really important because most of our diets are acidic. There really are very few things that we eat in our diet that are neutral or alkaline forming. So even some of the nuts, which are so healthy for us, are acidic forming. Pretty much it's fruits and vegetables and a little bit of some of the oils that are alkalizing. In fact, there are some fruits and vegetables that are acidifying. So we want to keep that pH balance because that will help to reduce the inflammation as well and keep our kidneys happy, because our kidneys are responsible for balancing the pH in the body. I can't wait till we get to some of the webinars where we talk about the body systems and why our bodies need these products. And I'll educate you, give you a little synopsis of how you can share some of this information with the people that you're sharing these products with. Now, of course, essential nutrients are a big part of the super green juice, and that's because most of our diets are lacking these essential nutrients. And not just because we're not eating them, but because the soils are just so worn out and tired. They don't have the nutrients in them. Now, if we've got an organic farm where they're composting and they're putting the nutrients back in the soil, that's another story. But if we're eating conventionally grown produce and fruits and vegetables, they've got fertilizer that have been sprayed on them to make the plant grow. So the nutrients, if they're not in the soil, they're not in the plant, no matter how much of that fertilizer they're spraying on it to make it grow. So the essential nutrients are really important. And then of course, probiotics, my goodness, we need these probiotics for both our healthy gut and for a healthy immune system. And when we talk about the gut, there is this connection. We actually have more immune cells in our gut than we do in our thymus gland. We have more nerve cells in our gut than we do in our entire brain and spinal cord. So we have a second brain and we have in our gut. We have a second immune system in our gut. And so protecting that gut, keeping that gut healthier is going to help us with our moods, with our focus, with our anxiety or depression, just kind of keep us balanced. We got to keep that gut balanced. And we'll go into that as well in a future webinar. So just so that you know, it's called the enteric nervous system. Enteric is in intestines or gut. So we've got this enteric nervous system, which is a bidirectional communication where the gut talks to the brain and the brain talks to the gut. So if your gut is a mess, guarantee this is a mess. Worry, fret, anxiety, depression, sleeplessness. Now, likewise, like I said, if the gut's a mess, this is a mess. But likewise, because of that bidirectional communication, if this is a mess, this creates a mess further on down. So we really have to work together using those adaptogens to help us adapt to stress and then use those probiotics to build that gut. Now, the immune system in our gut, there's an acronym for it. It's GALT, GALT. It stands for gut associated lymphoid tissue. And as I mentioned, we have more immune cells in our gut than we do anywhere else in our bodies. So again, keeping that gut, that's why there's so much focus on the gut today, because we've got to keep that balanced in order to have a healthy body and a healthy mind. So it's pretty exciting stuff. And we'll be talking more and more and more about this as the months go on and the weeks go on. Now, lastly, in our super green juice, the mushrooms. I'm so excited to share all this information with you about the mushrooms. But again, they support our immune health. They're a very big piece of that. The antioxidants are that antidote to something called free radicals, which can damage cells. We will also go into that in a later webinar. We've got fiber in there. And again, that's going to support not only the gut functioning, again, we got that big picture in the gut that we've got to work on, but the fiber also keeps those cholesterol levels in our body at a more favorable level. The omegas in our super green juice, of course, nourish our heart, our brain, our nerves, our joints, our skin, and several of the other organs. And lastly, we've got these 5 types of enzymes that what their job is to do is to kind of unlock the nutrition from all the food groups so that we get more of them in our body. I remember about maybe 20 years ago when I was teaching live classes for a company, we would take 2 bowls of oatmeal, instant oatmeal, and we would put one packet in a bowl, clear bowl, and another one over here. We'd mix the water and we'd leave it. What we would do in the second bowl is we'd open a capsule of an enzyme formula. So, 5 different types of enzymes, and we would mix it in. And about 15, 20 minutes later, we would revisit those oatmeal bowls. And when you took the spoon, you could go like this and bring up that sticky, thick oatmeal in just a big glob. And yet, the one that had the enzymes in it almost poured like a liquid. And that's what those enzymes do. Again, they kind of unlock the nutrition and they make it so that we can absorb those nutrients a lot better. So that's really what makes up that super green juice. So folks, I'm going to tell you, you've got to join us on June 3rd and June 10th next month for this continuing education. We're going to be taking an in-depth look at some of your favorite Touchstone Essential products. And so I'm going to thank you for joining us tonight and tell you we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Cindy. Wonderful information as always. Ladies and gentlemen, we're excited about next week. We're back together again next week on June 3rd to learn about 3 Touchstone Essentials products. For the next couple of, the next couple of webinars, we're going to focus on products, as Cindy said. So this is an opportunity to learn specific details about each one of the products. And then once we go through that, we're going to get into some specific interesting topics, as Cindy mentioned. But there's all kinds of information. We've got so many wonderful products here at Touchstone Essentials, and Cindy is here to help us learn it all. So Cindy, thank you again. We appreciate you. And ladies and gentlemen, thanks for being with us tonight. We'll see you next week on June the 3rd. Same time, same place. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.